KitGuru is at Computex 2024 and we're visiting Sharkoon. And we're starting off with something which Sharkoon is claiming is very, very unique. What you can see here is what Sharkoon says, the world's first mass-produced fully wooden keyboard. So in the mechanical keyboard enthusiast community, you'd occasionally get wooden cases done at like a group buy. You'd maybe only get 20 or 30 and they'd be very, very expensive. Sharkoon's saying this is the first mass-produced version. So it is using the SGK50. As you can see, we've got 3 different sizes. We go from the 60%, which is the smallest. We then have the 75% over here. And then at the top, we have 2 96% models. The internals is all the same between them. The only difference really is the size. So we have 3 different sizes. The key internals is all the same. So we have Gateron G Pro 3.0 yellow switches amongst all of them. And I have to say, I was doing a little sound test, a little type test before. They sound very pleasing to the ear. They come factory lubed. But the wood really is the key thing here. So you might be able to tell if Leah does a slightly wider shot. All of them look slightly different, and that's because each keyboard is actually CNC milled from a single piece of wood. So naturally that means every keyboard is going to be slightly different, as you can't use the same piece of wood more than once. And that does mean you might get slight differences, say, between your wrist rest and the keyboard. Personally, I quite like that. Sharkoon tells us while it's hard to create a spec for this kind of thing, they do want to try and get as many of these boards as possible in the slightly more darker style like you can see here. But for me, this looks absolutely fantastic, and I personally can't wait to hear what Matt thinks of these keyboards. Speaking of things Matt's reviewed, I'm actually sat in the Sharkoon C30 chair, and in his review Matt made a point about the armrests. So as you note, they're not locked, nothing stopping them from moving. So if you rest back and pull on the armrests and then sit back forward again, they're still at the back. Might not be the best thing. However, Sharkoon told us they have listened. So I'm going to move the C30 out the way and introducing the C40. This is a very similar chair, more or less the same core design, same overall chassis, but what you note here, this glossy button, this is where the magic happens. This is the new armrest lock. So with the button not pressed, it's not going anywhere. As soon as I press the button, I can angle it, I can tilt it. I'm pretty sure I can slide it backwards and forwards, maybe. I'm not too sure about that, but it does also come up and down on the other side. But the key thing is, you don't press it. You try and lean back as far as you can. If I unlock the tilt, I lean back. Way! The armrest isn't going anywhere. So Matt, they listen to you. I hope you get to review this one again as well. Back on the topic of keyboards then, we just saw the wooden models, but here we have the regular SGK50 S2, and there's also the SGK50 S2 PBT. The difference is these bottom 2 here are using regular standard Gateron switches and ABS keycaps, whereas the 2 at the back towards the end, they are using the updated G Pro 3.0 yellow switches and also PBT keycaps. That does give them an additional cost of about 20 euros, pounds, dollars, but I personally think that's well worth paying for due to the increased tactility and also the slightly improved acoustics. Moving down to the left, Sharkoon is introducing a few design bundles, so you can clearly see here, the name of the game is customization. If you want a unique keycap aesthetic with a, what looks to be a very pleasing gradient effect, I have to say here. And obviously it also matches some of the large mouse mats that Sharkoon is doing, so if you want that nice paired up aesthetic, this could be an option for you. Moving on now to talk briefly about a few different headsets. We're going to start off with the SGH40W. Sharkoon described this as their first wireless headset in a while. So it's not their first one, but their first in a while. The key thing they tell us here is that everything that touches your head or your ears is made from fabric. So if I try and show the inside of the ear cushions, you can see fabric on the inside, but on the outside, you still have that faux leather. And they tell us that keeps the increased bass response and also the passive noise cancellation, but you don't get as much heat. Moving down the line, we have the SGH25, and I guess this is a very similar design headset, but this time fully fabric cushions, and it is this time wired using a little dongle where you have your mic mute switch, and it terminates in a 3.5mm connector. That's only going to be €45. The SGH40 wireless we saw is only 65, so very affordable, but it gets even cheaper. We've got these last two on the end, the SGH10 and the SGH20. This time around, they use a floating headband design. One is USB Type A, which could be good if you have terrible onboard audio. However, if you want to use a 3.5mm jack, then you have the SGH10. Like I said, €20, €20, $20. Very, very affordable.
Moving on to cases, we have the Rebel C20 ITX. The clue is in the name. This launched about 3 weeks ago. This is in the one mode, laid down, and here we have it stood up. And as we switch to the laid down version, Andre is going to remove the panels just to show us how much hardware you can fit inside your ITX case. We have fans in the roof, AIO cooler in the side, and just look at the length of the graphics card. Support for all your PC gaming hardware. And we go around the back, and we see it's powered with an SFX power supply. Price is £150, euros, dollars. New air coolers, and these are keen candidates for reviews, starting at £25, euros, dollars, and going up to 60. Look to see how these work in action. I particularly like the look of the A50. That strikes me as incredibly slender, and a compact, effective air cooler is always good. But as ever, it takes a review to be sure. And moving to the right, we have the Elite Shark CA500. It's worth noting the cases you're about to see are all compatible with the Asus BTF or indeed Project Zero, but basically rear power connectors. So the thing with the Elite Shark CA500 build, as Dominic moves around to the main window, and we move on to the Elite Shark CA500, also priced at £150, euros, dollars. This case is all about the cleanliness of the build, and we're going to see the glass come away now. One piece. Isn't that just nifty? And you'll note, if you look carefully, there are no cables on show. This is BTF compatible, or Project Zero if you prefer, or whatever the heck Gigabyte's going to call their scheme. But basically, all the cables around the back. And this is true of the rest of the cases that we are about to see. This case is coming Q4, so think of it as a Christmas gift to yourself. Also, the Elite Shark D100 screen here. This has USB-C power and connects over HDMI, and naturally it's acting as a second display to either show off a logo or functions such as CPU temperature, something like that. You can mount it in this position here or in the front. It's a simple 2-screw installation, and it's priced at £70, euros, dollars. And we go around the back, or the right-hand side rather, and we go to the right-hand side panel, and behold, all the cables in there. Now we have some bracketry in place, so we can't yet see all the perforations in the motherboard tray, but we will see that very shortly. However, look at the RGB fan hub at the top of the case. Very neat. And that's the explanation for the cleanliness of the main compartment. All the cables hidden out of sight. We move on to the Elite Shark CM100. The glass comes away, priced at $129 this time. Essentially the same case, but micro ATX. And once again, a clean aesthetic. And then we come round to the Rebel C60, which we know and respect. Next to that, the C80 RGB. The difference is the front panel. You can see we have the extra air intakes, and when you come to the very front, you've got this swoopy aesthetic going on that shows off some of the RGB in the front. The AK5 RGB available in black or white, either with glass at the front or mesh, priced at £89, euros, dollars, coming later this year. Let's call it Christmas. This is obviously about the RGB and these unique fans, which are Sharkoon own. Now, you will note the cables here look absolutely horrendous at the moment. However, they're going to be changing the printing on the front glass. So what you'll see is something more akin to what you can see on the black. And because of the tint there, basically the cables are hidden. But imagine the printing coming in further, say to here. So you've got a band covering the cables. In other words, ignore the mess. Instead, focus on those unique fans and their individual fan blades. This case looks promising, but of course it'll take a review to be absolutely sure. And we finish up with two budget cases, the MK6 RGB priced at £74 US dollars and the AK6 priced at 10 more. All the fans that you can see inside the cases come with those cases. And we're going to take a quick look in the right hand side of one of these cases just to see what that motherboard tray looks like. And as we look at the motherboard tray of the AK5 RGB in white, you can see all the perforations that are required to make it BTF compatible. Manufacturing this thing must be a nightmare because that's more hole than metal. It looks very promising. It's going to come down as ever to the review. And I'm signing off in a nice comfy Skiller chair. This is KitGuru with Sharkoon at Computex 2024, kitguru.net on the web, and we're on TikTok. Throw us a like, throw us a subscribe, give us a thumbs up.